Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. In Omagh in Northern Ireland, this photo was taken shortly before an explosion on August 15, 1998. The image shows a father and his daughter on a busy street in an ordinary everyday moment. Soon after, the incident killed 29 people. The photographer was among those who died while the father and daughter survived. On February 16, 1934, the photo shows children with Down syndrome in a ward of Schönbrunn Hospital near Dachau, Germany. The scene shows the institutional care setting used at the time. Details like clothing, posture, and the layout of the space help place early 20th century care practices. In 1986, the photo shows the reaction of people watching the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger as the mission ended in front of the public. The moment marked the United States space program and changed safety and communication procedures. The image directly captures the immediate impact of what people were seeing live. Shortly before being deported, Istvan Reinper, 4 years old, smiles in a studio portrait taken during World War II. Later, he was taken to Auschwitz in occupied Poland and did not return. The image shows how ordinary family photos can also connect to larger events of that period in Europe. In Hiroshima, Japan, a dark mark became known as a shadow after the atomic blast on August 6, 1945. It formed when intense light and heat created contrast on a surface where something blocked part of the thermal impact. These traces were recorded during inspections carried out in the city in the weeks that followed. Taken in 1950, the photograph shows Anita Ekberg at the start of her artistic career. The portrait belongs to a period when her public image in film and fashion was taking shape. The scene reflects the visual and style standards of the time. The record preserves an early moment in an international path. In a cemetery in Hanoi in 1970, the image shows a young North Vietnamese soldier lighting a cigarette for an elderly man. Both appear to have lost a leg in a portrait of how war marks everyday life. Nearby, a sign commemorates 45 students who died in a bombing on March 16, 1965. In Slovenia, then part of Yugoslavia, Albina Mali Hočevar is linked to the resistance that fought in World War II from 1941 until the arrival in Trieste in 1945. The text says she was wounded 3 times during the conflict, and the photo records the path of a fighter in the final push toward the northern Adriatic. Among the rubble at the World Trade Center in New York City, the photo shows the aircraft warning antenna on September 13, 2001, a few days after the September 11 attacks. The scene connects to search operations and debris removal at the site, then called Ground Zero. After the events of September 11, 2001, the photo shows President George W. Bush aboard Air Force One. The moment connects to travel under security measures and the first communication decisions by the government that day. The presidential aircraft served as a temporary base for contacting officials and tracking incoming information. On March 19, 1921, Warren G. Harding greets World War I veterans with physical disabilities. In the foreground, a man moves on a wheeled board used as an improvised mobility solution. The scene reflects a time when support for veterans was not yet broad or well organized. Between 1947 and 1949 in the United States, Martha Beck and Raymond Fernandez were linked to the Lonely Hearts case after contacting women through personal ads. The investigation pointed to multiple victims and led to the couple's arrest. In Queens, New York, police found Janet Fay during the searches. During the early Spanish Civil War in 1936, the photo shows a volunteer militia fighter connected to the defense of the Republic. The context includes the military uprising of July 17, 1936, and the popular mobilizations that followed in several regions. The version shown was later colorized, bringing out details in clothing and equipment from the period. In 1946, this child's writing became linked to a criminal case in Chicago in the United States, often referred to by the nickname lipstick. The note asked that the person be stopped before causing more harm and ended up being treated as one of the most remembered pieces of that investigation. In the Ottoman Empire during World War I, the photo shows two Armenian self-defense groups organized in 1915. They emerged amid persecution and forced displacement affecting local communities at the time. These units aimed to protect villages and open escape routes for civilians. Inside the federal courthouse in Muskogee, Oklahoma, the photo records the trial of men accused of assaulting and causing the deaths of two indigenous people. The case drew attention as a rare attempt at legal accountability for this kind of crime at the time, with dozens of defendants. The portrait shows Hans Schmidt, a German Catholic priest who settled in the United States and became known after being convicted of homicide in 1913 in New York City. On February 18, 1916, he received a death sentence carried out at Sing Sing Prison in the state of New York. In downtown Mobile, Alabama, the image records an encounter during a march by a white supremacist group on September 24, 1977. The scene connects to the group's public action and to residents' reactions, with police present in the area. The record shows the social tension surrounding these demonstrations at the time. During a public event in the United States, a member of an extremist group and a state police officer stand on opposite sides of a protest. Nearby, a small child walks up to the officer, who has a protective shield resting on the ground. Seeing their own reflection on the shield's surface, the child reaches out and touches it. In 1967, the photo shows a United States Marine in Vietnam holding up a message addressed to the Commander-in-Chief, President Lyndon Baines Johnson. The scene connects to war weariness and to differing views within the armed forces during the conflict. The record captures a moment of individual expression within a military setting. After capturing a fortified French position, a group of Viet Minh soldiers is shown celebrating during the First Indochina War. The scene links to 1949, when the conflict was already expanding in Vietnam. In the background, burning remains of the seized structure appear, showing the site's destruction. The moment foreshadows a war that would continue until 1954. During the hunger winter in the Netherlands, the photo shows a boy severely weakened by lack of food near the end of World War II. The period, between late 1944 and early 1945, was marked by occupation, blockades, and transportation breakdowns that reduced access to food and fuel. At the end of World War II, the photo shows a very young German soldier amid surrender and detention in the town of Kronach, Germany, on April 27, 1945. The record connects to the final days of the conflict on German soil, when units were breaking apart and many miners ended up caught in the last mobilization. Guiding the first wave of troops at Utah Beach in Normandy, Theodore Roosevelt Jr. landed on D-Day using a cane and then moved inland coordinating positions. The scene took place on June 6, 1944, during the start of the Allied invasion of occupied France in World War II, and the version shown is colorized. Amid air operations over the Pacific Ocean, the record shows Alex Vrasiu celebrating the downing of 6 Japanese aircraft during the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The episode took place on June 19, 1944, during one of the largest air battles of World War II. In a World War I scene, Italian soldiers are shown wearing gas masks in 1916 amid operations on Italian territory. The image was taken by the great-grandfather of the person who preserved the photograph, keeping a direct link to the family's history. On the facade of Palazzo Braschi in Rome, a large propaganda display for the Italian Fascist Party appears, set up for the 1934 election. The building housed the city's fascist federation, and the facade repeated the word yes to push an approval vote in a one-choice referendum. In Bangui in the Central African Republic, Jean Bedel Bokassa appears at the coronation on December 4, 1977, when he declared himself Emperor Bokassa I. The ceremony was staged with imperial clothing and symbols to announce the change in regime. In London, on June 13, 1981, during Trooping the Colour, a 17-year-old fired blank cartridges near Queen Elizabeth II as she rode on horseback. She was not injured, and the person was detained at the scene. The episode led to a court case and tighter security at public events. At a public event in Germany in the 1930s, Joseph Goebbels appears beside members of the Catholic clergy during a salute connected to the German regime. The scene shows how appearances and ceremonies were used to project alignment and political support in that period. In Berlin, the photo shows the German leader's office in the new Reich Chancellery around 1939. The building had been completed shortly before World War II and was used for meetings and official receptions. The image highlights the monumental architecture associated with the regime. On Park Avenue, in front of Grand Central Terminal in New York City, a pyramid of German helmets was set up as part of post-World War I events around 1919. The structure was part of the Victory Way display tied to the Fifth War Loan Campaign. On the streets of Paris in 1871, a barricade appears built by commune participants as part of their defense during the fighting. The visible blur is explained by the long exposure time required by cameras of the era, which recorded movement as smears. In Nashville, Tennessee, a 1956 sign records opposition to racial integration during the segregation era in the United States. The message tries to sound polite while rejecting equality in public spaces and schools. The scene connects to the period when the civil rights movement was gaining strength. In front of a church in Fort Worth, Texas, a group of white protesters opposes desegregation on October 9, 1956. The scene connects to local reactions to legal and political changes in the United States after rulings that challenged segregation in schools and public spaces. On the streets of Bogalusa in the state of Louisiana in the United States, the photo records a protest tied to the civil rights movement and desegregation. The record is associated with July 1, 1965, when public actions in the city sought equal access to spaces and services. The scene shows how these mobilizations filled community areas with protesters and officials present. In March 1979, a few days after the Iranian Revolution, the photo shows women protesting in Tehran against the requirement to wear the hijab. The demonstrations took place during the week of March 8 as new dress rules began to be announced. In London in the United Kingdom, the photo shows Jeremy Corbyn taking part in an anti-apartheid protest in 1984. The scene connects to international mobilizations that pushed for change in South Africa, with marches and public demonstrations calling for an end to the segregation system. In East Berlin in 1989, tens of thousands of people took to the streets to protest the government of the German Democratic Republic. The demonstrations were part of a broader wave calling for political reform, freedom to travel, and changes to the country's system. In central Berlin, a German civilian looks at a large portrait of Stalin displayed on June 3, 1945. The scene took place a few weeks after the German surrender, when the city was under Allied occupation and going through rapid changes in administration and public propaganda. At a station in Budapest, Hungary, the image shows the departure of a Red Cross train bound for Switzerland in 1947. The scene connects to the post-World War II period when humanitarian organizations helped transport and assist displaced people. The moment portrays international relief during Europe's rebuilding. On the streets of Marseille, France, people watch French battle flags being gathered for transport after the defeat in German occupation in 1940. The scene connects to measures taken to remove or protect military symbols and official collections during the country's reorganization. In Chisuri Mustafa Pasha, now Svilengrad, in Bulgaria, the photo shows a Turkish farmer saying a prayer shortly before his death. The scene took place in 1913 during the Balkan Wars in a period of fighting and reprisals in the region. The record documents a moment of farewell within the context of conflict. During a ceremony in Washington, District of Columbia, the photograph shows John F. Kennedy Jr. saluting at the funeral of his father, President John F. Kennedy. The moment happened in 1963 in front of officials and the public. The scene became one of the best-known images of that period. In Okinawa, United States soldiers gather around a radio to hear news of the German surrender on May 8, 1945. The scene takes place during the Pacific Campaign, when the end of the war in Europe was announced while fighting continued against Japan. The Doll by Hans Bellmer was produced in Germany in 1936 and is based on an articulated doll built and photographed by the artist. The work connects to European surrealism, using assembly and object to question representation and the body. In Rome around 1900, the photo shows the Capuchin crypt with bones arranged in patterns and ornaments on the walls. The site is in the convent of Santa Maria della Concezione dei Cappuccini and contains remains attributed to friars from earlier eras. On the island of Jersey, this image shows the mask linked to the case known as the Beast of Jersey, used to hide identity during home break-ins in the 1960s and 1970s. The suspect, Edward Posnell, was later identified and convicted, and the episode led to a major police investigation and strong public attention on the island. Beside the railroad tracks in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the photo shows a pile of bison bones in 1890. The material was carried by train and shipped to England to be ground up and used to make bone china. The scene connects to international raw material trade and to changes in the Canadian prairies in the late 19th century. A photograph taken in 1967 during a photo session with the Mothers of Invention and Jimi Hendrix, connected to the album We're Only in It for the Money. The photo was made during the period when the record was being produced and promoted. The image documents a meeting between artists tied to the experimental music scene of the 1960s. Around 1900, the image shows men in the Netherlands wearing traditional pants tied to local customs. The clothing was part of everyday life and daily work in regional communities. These clothes reflected cultural practices passed down through generations. The record preserves a common visual detail from the early 20th century. In 1944, the photo shows a British soldier sheltering from rain under the frame of a German tank during World War II. The scene reveals an improvised use of a war vehicle turned into a brief shield against the weather. The record captures an everyday moment between military operations, away from direct combat. Between movements and pauses of World War II, the photo shows a Red Army soldier holding a kitten. The scene connects to the battlefronts in Eastern Europe, where animals often appeared among camps and city ruins. Among the Northern Cheyenne warriors, Buffalo Calf Road Woman is remembered for fighting in the Battle of Little Bighorn on June 25, 1876, in what is now the state of Montana in the United States. Accounts and oral traditions mention her role in the fight, but records do not definitively confirm who killed George Armstrong Custer. On the Eastern Front of World War II, the group known as the Night Witches brought together Soviet women pilots from the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. The unit began operating in 1941, flying night missions against German positions. Many flew Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes and worked at low altitude to carry out attacks. Connected to Balkan revolutionary movements in the early 20th century, the record shows Gheorghe Iori Mutsitani. He served as leader of the first Aromanian group within the internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization from 1903 to 1907. The period was marked by political and territorial struggles in the region of Macedonia. Christopher Lee, still an Air Force officer, photographed in Vatican City in 1944. The moment took place shortly after the liberation of Rome during World War II. At the time, Lee served on missions connected to Allied operations in Italy. 3 years later, he would begin a film career that made him widely known. At a farewell ceremony in Seattle, Washington, Miles Davis appears among those present at a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. The gathering took place on October 1, 1970, when family and friends came together for the burial in the Renton area near the musician's hometown. In 1913, the photograph shows members of the Blackfoot people in Glacier National Park in the state of Montana in the United States. The image was made by Roland Reed at a time when portraits like this circulated in early 20th century publications and postcards. The scene combines the park landscape with visual elements tied to Blackfoot cultural identity. In front of the camera, a Chinese immigrant family poses in a portrait taken in Oregon in the United States in the 1890s. The scene connects to Chinese presence in the American West, tied to work and urban businesses. The period was also marked by immigration restrictions and discrimination, which led communities to organize into local networks. On a platform set up in the Appalachian Mountains, John F. Kennedy is shown speaking during the United States presidential campaign. The visit took place in 1960 and connected to debates about poverty, jobs, and access to basic services in rural areas. In a resistance setting in the Netherlands, the photo shows members celebrating as they hear on the radio that the German leader had died in early May 1945. The news arrived during the final days of World War II in Europe, when the German occupation was close to ending. Known as Madame Dimanche, also called Widow Sunday, the image is linked to a French woman who lived in Paris during the 19th century. The record belongs to a time of intense urban and social change in the city. Photos like this help document real figures from everyday Paris life. The scene preserves a visual fragment of life in France at that time. A Halloween portrait from about 100 years ago shows 3 people wearing costumes typical of the early 20th century. The clothing and masks appear simply made before ready-made holiday items became common. The image records a local custom and how these celebrations were remembered in photographs. The photograph shows a woman on top of the Mississippi River, fully frozen in St. Louis, Missouri. The image was made during a period of extreme cold that allowed the river to freeze over. This phenomenon changed daily life for local residents. The photo documents an unusual weather event that happened in 1905. The image shows Nikola Tesla in his laboratory in Colorado Springs beside a working high-voltage generator. The equipment produced electrical discharges during experiments. The photo was taken in December 1899 during a period of intense study of electricity. In front of the Morgan Hill School in California, the image shows children saluting the United States flag in the 1930s. The scene reflects a common school routine with group civic ceremonies at the start of the day. The record captures a slice of daily life in public education at that time. In Kyoto, Japan, Nintendo was still a small company making handmade playing cards around 1895. At the time, the work focused on traditional decks before any expansion into other markets. In 1956, winners of the Miss Correct Posture contest pose with trophies and X-ray images used for evaluation. The competition was promoted to encourage posture habits and physical education, tying the theme to health language. The image shows how exams were used to give a technical feel to these contests at the time. Standing on a gun turret of the United States ship Connecticut, Theodore Roosevelt speaks to the crew on February 22 during the final week of his presidency. The scene took place during an official visit to the United States Navy in a period of ceremonies and naval inspections. At the San Diego Zoo in California, A delegation from the People's Republic of China is photographed in 1980. The visit connects to the period of closer ties between China and the United States after diplomatic normalization in the late 1970s. The scene shows a public schedule moment and exchange outside official meetings. At the Barcelona Olympics in 1992, the International Basketball Federation allowed professional players to compete in Olympic basketball. As a result, National Basketball Association players formed the United States team known as the Dream Team. The team won the tournament and took gold, marking a turning point in international basketball history. At a private charging station, the photo shows an electric car being charged in the United States in 1919. The process was done in garages and homes with equipment connected to the electric grid. The scene is a reminder that electric vehicles were already in city areas in the early 20th century. In 1955, on a street in Glasgow, Scotland, the photo shows a lamplighter working on a gas lamp post. He followed routes and schedules to turn public lights on and off by hand. The scene portrays a traditional job in transition before electrification fully took hold on the streets. In Tennessee in 1909, the image shows a baby being handed over in the care context of the time. In that period, many births happened at home with help from midwives or local doctors before maternity hospitals expanded. The photo records common practices of the early 20th century. The photo shows a family in the American West posing when a photographer arrived in the area. The scene was arranged to display furniture and a large melon harvest as a sign of prosperity. A cow appears in an unusual position next to the house, becoming a striking detail in the portrait. A Seneca Nation portrait showing Wei Ayu, known as Pretty Flower, in 1908. The image was taken by photographer J.L. Blessing. The portrait documents the presence and cultural identity of the Seneca people in the early 20th century. The record preserves an important example of indigenous historical photography from that time. Theodore Roosevelt, known as Teddy, photographed in 1904 and later colorized. The image matches the period of his presidency in the United States. The record documents the look and visual style of political leadership in the early 20th century. The colorization allows a clearer view of details in the original portrait. An everyday scene stands out during the opening of McDonald's in Moscow, the Russian capital. The image shows an older woman trying a hamburger at the chain's first restaurant in the city. The moment happened amid the economic and social shifts of the late Soviet period. The record reflects visible changes in urban habits at that time. The Universal Orlando Resort opens in Orlando, Florida in 1990. The image shows the opening of the Universal Studios Florida Park, focused on entertainment inspired by movies and television. The place began operating with themed attractions and visitor areas. In the Mojave Desert in California, the image shows a prototype spacesuit test for the Apollo program in the 1960s. The trials evaluated mobility and durability in a dry, dusty environment used as a reference for missions. This kind of test helped fine-tune equipment details before flights.